Hello and welcome back to your piano school. Today we're on piece number 8. It's called Lost and it looks like this. As always, you can find the music for the backing track and this piece via my website when you join my school. Just punch in your email address, I'll send you a link, and immediately you can get this for free and have access to a variety of backing tracks so that you can practice at your own pace. Lost covers 4 pages and we've got a few new things that we need to look out for. So let's start from page 1 and whiz through this. We've got B flats to pay attention for. It's at 115 beats per minute. Once you've practiced it, you can get it up to that speed. And if you have a look, we've got a pedal symbol underneath line 1. We saw this in the music box, however, if you have a look in line 2, I've changed up the way that's displayed. Instead of saying ped at the start, and yeah, if you look closely, it really doesn't look like ped, it looks like lead. Who chose that font? But in any case, instead of saying ped at the start, it's just a horizontal line, vertical line going down, followed by a horizontal, followed by a vertical. And that, I think, just keeps it a little bit tidier, especially as I utilise more and more of these symbols. If you also have a look at the notes in line 2, you'll see there are some dashes below them. Those dashes represent an accent, and this particular accent means to play the note stronger and slightly for longer. It's phrased kind of weirdly. I believe the definition is something along the lines of to play the fullest extent of the note and the slightly louder bit comes somewhere else. And the fullest extent of the note in this case is still just a quaver, so what I want is something just a bit stronger. It doesn't need to be harsh, it just needs to be a slightly firmer note so that the melody comes out. And I'll get to that in just a moment when we start playing. If you continue to look in line 2, on the final bar, we've got a word, simil, which means similar. That is in relation to not only the dashes underneath the notes, because to be perfectly honest, I didn't want to write all of them in, but it also relates to the pedal, because again, not only am I being lazy because I didn't want to write them in, but it's far easier to read when you know the feel of it already. You don't need every single bar of a piece telling you where those accents are and where that sustain pedal is, assuming that each bar has the same rhythm and style. If it changes up at all, then I'll tell you a new accent or a new pedal note, and then we'll use another simil to suggest from that point on we've changed up the style. Now, if we have a look at page 2, you can see that we've got some weird dashed lines with an 8 at the start. That 8 represents the octave. So what you do is you read the right hand as it is. You've got a D followed by a D, E, F, and this is in line, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, bar 21. You're reading D, then D, E, F, as per usual. But instead of playing them here, an octave above middle C, you're playing them an octave above that. The 8 is telling you to play everything higher up. You can even get symbols that represent 16 and 24 way up there, so that when you read the music, it can be read in a nice, easy position. For example, you can read all of those notes already. We've covered all of them in the past. However, if I was to write them all up here, the amount of lines you'd have to read through, it'd just be a mess. So the workaround is that 8 symbol with loads of dashed horizontal lines, and that continues through lines 6 and 7. But to be honest, I think that's pretty much it in regards to new things to learn. So without further, before I jump ahead, have a look at line 3. And at the end of line 3, you've got a double bar line. Now that's not as dark as the line you'd see at the end of the piece on page 4. It's there to signify a change in section. So not only am I displaying letters for section changes, but I'm also putting it in the bar line, so when you're reading the music you can see that something's going to change afterwards. Just keeps things neat and tidy. Right, we should probably get playing. So now that I'm fairly confident that you've got the majority of the notes, the majority of the styles, and the feel of music in general, I'm not going to go through every single note. I might play through a line, but I'm only going to pick up on the things that you need to watch out for that you might not have learned in the past. So let's take a look at line 1, and it sounds just like this. That's it. The pedal stays on the entire time, sort of creates a mushy mess. It's a little bit of atmosphere, basically. That's what I'm trying to introduce at the start of this piece. Now, did you see what I was doing with my right hand? I kept it on my leg, which arguably, if I was only to play this line, that's absolutely fine. But as soon as I'd get to line 2, suddenly that hand would have to get up and in position. Now, if you're not completely confident, 110% confident where every single note is on the piano, you will not be able to get your hand from your leg to the piano quick enough to join in. You've got a little bit of leeway because there's a semi-breathe at the end of the line, but in any case, just because you don't have anything to play for the first 4 bars in the right hand doesn't mean that it should be off the piano. Get it up there and get the right hand prepared and ready for line 2. Now, I realise we may not have actually covered what sort of things are being displayed in the right hand in that first line, because most of my pieces so far have covered so many notes all of the time, we haven't had a chance to rest. And that's what these are. Those little rectangles that you can see in each bar, those represent a full bar of rest. You'll see more in the future, but clearly my writing, and I haven't even thought about it, my writing just doesn't allow for rests most of the time. This may actually be the first time you've seen a rest, which is probably not great on my part, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You'll learn about them in the future. All they are doing is showing you categorically that you do not need to play anything at that moment in time. So anyways, moving on to line 2, we've essentially got the same thing as line 1, but both hands together an octave apart, alongside those accented notes. And I'm going to ignore the pedal for just a moment. Did you feel that? Did you feel the melody? You can hear dun, 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 dun. If you can hear that in your own playing, then you know you're getting the accents accurate. So I'll play it again. Now they might not need to be that harsh, but you still need to be able to hear them above the other notes. That's sort of a melody that I'm trying to push through. And again, you can hear at the end of that line, I'm continuing that feeling, continuing the accents, even though they're not written in every single note, because it says simil. Watch out in bar 5, 6, 7, because the bottom note does change, and that's a recurring theme throughout this piece, where you've got a top pattern and then the bottom notes are slightly shifting. And be aware that every bar you'll want to put the pedal down and then rapidly lift it up and put it back down for the next bar so that it doesn't get too muddy. So I'll play line 2 now with the pedal in action so you can hear how it should sound. See, the accents aren't too bad when you've got the pedal going, but when they're on their own, they can sometimes feel a little bit too strong. But as long as you can hear them, you're doing a great job. Right, line 3, I'm not going to go through it because it's the same as line 2, apart from a couple of bass note changes. Watch out for those C sharps in bars 9 and 10. On to section B, we've got the same repeating pattern we've already had at the start, but only in the left hand. Meanwhile, the right hand is playing a melody. In order to do this, you're going to have to make sure that the left hand is perfect. At no point can you still be worrying about what your left hand is doing when you introduce that melody part. If you're still having to look at your left hand while you're playing, which is probably a bad thing to begin with, it means you haven't learnt it properly. So go back to line 1, just look at the music. You don't need to look at your hand at all, it's not moving enough to need to worry about it. Make sure you've got your fifth finger on D, thumb on A, and you'll have all the notes covered. And practice it. If you can play that repeating pattern and, I don't know, maybe sing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, which actually would be incredibly difficult, or have a conversation with yourself out loud, then you know you've got it. If you can say the alphabet, not with the notes but in its own time, then you know that your left hand has gained the muscle memory to be able to play every single note while something else does something else. So while it's going on in the background, you can then introduce the right hand as the melody, and that's something you can focus on. Just be very careful that the left hand shifts that little finger just enough to be able to change those bass notes in bars 15 and 16. And again, we do have some accents going on, but focus on the pattern first and add the accents later. I would probably go in terms of priority. Pitch always comes first, followed by rhythm. Then I'd probably go accents, then I'd go dynamics. So that's sort of the order that you should watch out for when practicing something for the first time. Moving on. On to page 2, we've got a similar melody as we had on line 4, so I'm not going to go through that. Just again, watch out for those C sharps and follow the finger patterns that I've written in. At bar 21, we have the octave change. This only relates to the right hand. The left hand stays exactly where it was, but the right hand is higher up. So that was lines 6 and 7, continuing with that octave part. If you saw what my fingers were doing in the right hand, I do have to say that I've neglected to write in any finger positions in this piece at the moment of recording, so I'm making it up as I go along. But the finger positions that you will see when you download the music, those will be spot on, I promise. Section C, the left hand has changed up. If you hadn't noticed, this piece is really about getting that left hand moving. I've had quite a few students who can play rapidly. In fact, I had one yesterday. They can play the right hand rapidly of any piece. Fantastic. But the left hand's always neglected, and I really want to prevent that with this piece here. We're going to get the left hand up to speed. So section C, bar 29, we've got another repeating pattern, but no accents to watch out for. And much like we did on the previous pattern, make sure you've got the left hand down first, playing hands separately, so that you can speak, say the alphabet, or sing while the left hand keeps going. I'll be honest, I did get this wrong in the previous cut, and I got it wrong again. So make sure you've got that down before you add in the melody. And the melody really isn't too challenging. Just follow the fingers, watch out for the B flats, and you'll be absolutely fine. The nice thing, if there is a nice thing, about having continuous left hand movement, because you haven't had a break pretty much anywhere so far in this piece, is that you can see exactly where the note should line up, irrelevant of whether you know how many beats each note should be. So you can see in bar, 31, you've got 2 quavers followed by a dotted minim. Now, that might be quite easy for some people to know exactly what the rhythm is, but if it's not, it doesn't matter, because you can see exactly where those notes line up with the left hand, and you can match them perfectly. And don't forget, when you come to practicing it, slow it down. Again, I've had quite a few students who will play so fast straight away. It's fantastic. They can play the right hand really fast. They can play the left hand really fast. They'll start playing both hands together really fast and it suddenly goes wrong. But the worst thing is they will then repeat it at the same speed and repeat it at the same speed. 10 times they will play the same thing and get it wrong every single time. And I will always repeat, slow down, until they do. And at which point, miraculously, they can play it. And once they've slowed it down, it's very easy to speed it up. So slow down straight away. Don't ever play it fast straight away unless you know you're that good at sight reading that it's just going to be like that. Otherwise, play it slow, speed it up later. Otherwise, you're just wasting time playing it fast. Sort of sounds counterintuitive, but it's very true. Let's get to page 3. Oh, page 3 is a mess of notes. Okay, so we've got, I don't know what line we're on now, but we've got bar 37 and 41, those lines. Repeating patterns. The left hand's jumping around, you're doing a lot of 5, 1 and 3. Watching out for that B flat the whole time. Those jumps, you need to make sure they're as smooth as possible so that you can't even hear the breaks in the bars. If you can hear a break in the bar, you need to practice that bar, or at least the jump between the two. The right hand's nice, simple, even melody. And I don't think I've mentioned so far, but you can see those arcing lines going over the top. Those are phrase markings. Imagine it like a sentence. At the start of a sentence, you have a capital letter. At the end of a sentence, you have a full stop. And the way someone enunciates, don't know if that's correct, a sentence, or pronounces, no. The way someone flows through a sentence determines how that sentence should feel. So it's the same thing with phrase markings. It should drive through that melody from bars 37, 38, 39, and by the end of that sound, when you hit that F, it should sound like it's closing, like it's resolved. It's sort of hard to describe. I guess you could go into the phrase slightly stronger and then slightly quieten it off, even though there's no dynamics for the end little bit, and that gives an idea of you've started a sentence and now you've closed it. That's the way I think of phrase markings. I don't often pay attention as much as I should do with them, hence why I'm going to start writing them in to my pieces, not only to teach you, but to teach myself, because expression is what defines music. If you can't put expression into a piece, no matter how simple or complicated, then the piece just won't sound great. It will sound robotic, and that's not what we want. The piano is all about expression. So now we've got the double bar line at the end of bar 41, 42, 43, 44 into 45, which is the new section, of course. We've got section D, which is the same as section A, or at least when the hands went together. We've got the same deal with the accents, same deal with the pedal, same deal with simile, to suggest that we're going to be repeating that further on. So let's move straight to page 4. And to be honest, I really wish I'd managed to squish page 4 into the rest of the piece, because it is a little bit lackluster. But at this point, we've got a slight adjustment in the performance. We've got that pattern that we had before. But this time, you'll notice that our hands have to move. We're going to shift down to the C and repeat the same pattern, and then we're going to move both our hands down to the B flat. And this is quite a challenging one, because our thumbs on the B flat just feels awkward. Thankfully, there are no other flats to worry about, but that's how it should sound. And then we're back to D. And it just repeats until the end. And I think I might put a little writ in there as well to slow down. Haven't written it right now, but it feels like that should work. So that's the whole piece. It's quite nice, I think, if I do say so myself. I like the feel of it, I like the flow. The use of the sustain pedal means that the whole thing is just this atmospheric, warm sort of sound. None of it's too punchy or dramatic. It's just pleasant, really. If I've written a pleasant piece, that's quite boring, isn't it? But when you're playing this, watch out for the dynamics, and just watch out for where your fingers should be. At any point, if your fingers become a mess, something must have gone wrong. So make sure you follow them to the T. But in any case, I think I should probably play this to you, and then we'll call it a day on piece number 8, Lost. Oh, I didn't think about how many pages we're going to have to fit on my piano stand. This is an issue. This is a big issue. When it comes to playing a piece of music with multiple pages, you've got a couple of options. You can either memorize the music, absolutely no chance with me. I have no memory to save my life. You can tape the pages together and hope they sort of flimsily stay up on the stand long enough. Or you can get like a piece of card which is going to extend your stand, and you can put the paper on that. And I quite like that idea. I've never done it, but I do like the concept. And sadly, I don't actually have the space to do that right now. So what I'm going to do is page 1's going to be on the piano, and the other 3 pages are on my music stand in front of me. It's not ideal, and like in a performance aspect, you'd have to memorize it unless the piano has a long enough stand. I have seen piano stands that just have long enough ones already. In other pieces of music, you would be able to find a position to be able to turn the page. Like your left hand might have a slight pause for you to quickly turn over. And unfortunately, that's not the case with any of this. I've written quite an annoying piece to learn, I'll be honest. Yeah, tape them together, put a bit of card up, and or do what I did, and just shove them in as many places as you can, and don't worry about it too much. Anyways, this is Lost. I'm not confident on the dynamics, but let's see how it goes. It goes on, it goes on. It's weird. I have so little memory that I forget what I've written. I wrote this about 2 days ago, and that middle part I completely forgot. Hence why there's a couple of mistakes and the dynamics are a little bit all over the place. So I'm going to remind you of the phrase, do as I say, not as I do. Wait, yes, that's it. Yeah, do as I say, not as I do, because in reality that was far from perfect. But if you can get it up to that sort of pace and that feel, then you're in a good spot to be able to play it to the backing track. The one thing that I would remind you to watch out for is in bar 53, we have some flats in the right hand, especially with the F. It feels a little bit wonky with the forefinger having to reach up to get that flat, but you need it there, otherwise it's going to sound weird. And again, if you have a look at bar 18, we've got another B flat. I had to restart this take of a video because I forgot that flat for probably the 8th time ever. It's so frustrating. So that's bar 18. There's a C sharp, then a B flat. Just doesn't sound as creepy, mysterious without it. Just doesn't work. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this piece of music. It's been a bit of a long video. This might be the format from now on. I'm just trying to figure out the best way to get you informed on these pieces, and I think a slightly more relaxed vibe is the way to do it. Certainly more enjoyable for me. So stay motivated, keep practicing, don't forget to join my school and get the music and the backing tracks and all that sort of stuff. It's all free, it's all there for you. And I will see you in piece number 9. It's called The Smugglers. It's a fun one. I'm really happy with it, so I'll see you then.